Hi there, everybody. Welcome to today's open discussion of Workbook Lessons 113 through 119 of A Course in Miracles. My name is Johanna, and I'm a volunteer with the Foundation for Inner Peace. This session is being recorded and will be posted in the Facebook group sponsored by the Foundation, as well as on other social media. By deciding to be on the call, you grant permission to the Foundation to record the session and post it on sites of its choosing. The idea of these open Zoom workbook discussions is to look at the 7 lessons of the week before. I would like to ask you all to please mute because we have some background noise.
Let's see here. There you go.
Thank you. So I'll start that again. The idea of these open Zoom workbook discussions is to look at the 7 lessons of the week before. They form the starting point for our conversation today. We will most probably not be able to touch on each and every one of them, and that's all right. We will proceed as the Spirit moves us. We usually start our sessions with a prayer. After the prayer, we'll take a moment of silence to get centered and focused. And I will indicate when that moment of silence has come to an end. The prayer for today is lesson 242, because it is about salvation, and today's lessons are also touch upon salvation. So I thought that might be a good fit. Derek, if you could share the screen, it's on the second page of the document. So you'd have to scroll down one page.
Yep, can you see it? It should be up. Yep, Andrew's giving me a thumbs up so they can see it.
Okay. Lesson 242. This day is God's. It is my gift to him. I will not lead my life alone today. I do not understand the world. And so to try to lead my life alone must be but foolishness. But there is one who knows all that is best for me. And he is glad to make no choices for me but the ones that lead to God. I give this day to him, for I would not delay my coming home. And it is he who knows the way to God. And so we give today to you. We come with wholly open minds. We do not ask for anything that we may think we want. Give us what you would have received by us. You know all our desires and our wants, and you will give us everything we need in helping us to find the way to you. Amen. All right, thank you, everybody. I've copy-pasted the 7 lessons that form our starting point today on the document. Could you share it again, please, Dirk? And then just scroll down and there you go. Lesson 13 through, if you just scroll down slowly to the end, to 119. Okay. First, I'd like to ask, is there any lesson that any of you would like to focus on to begin with? And I can't see if there's any hands. All right, which one would that be?
I was thinking in terms of 122, but maybe you're just referring to these review lessons.
Yes, because today we're looking at 113 through 119.
Okay,
123 will be next week.
Oh, okay, those three will be next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Anybody? Otherwise, we'll just go from the top down, and then we'll see what sparks a conversation. So if you exactly. 113. All right, I'll read 113, and then I'll ask somebody else to read the next lesson, and that person can ask somebody else to read the following lesson. And then if somebody would like to comment or perhaps ask a question about one of these lessons that we're reading, we can stop and talk about it. Lesson 113. I am one self, united with my Creator. Serenity and perfect peace are mine, because I am one self, completely whole, at one with all creation and with God. Salvation comes from my one self. From my one self, whose knowledge still remains within my mind, I see God's perfect plan for my salvation perfectly fulfilled. Anybody?
Notice Peter had his hand up just a moment ago that we missed. Peter, did you have anything to add?
I'll do 114.
Okay, well, I wanted to say something really quickly about 113. What always strikes me with this oneself and unity and wholeness and stuff is for me, the confusion sometimes between I am oneself and the whole of creation. So it seems like it's I and we at the same time. All of us at the same time as I always have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I just thought I'd mention that if somebody else may recognize it, or maybe have a.
Well, I would say I would chime in on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 113. I am oneself, united with my Creator. I'm a lot bigger than I think I am. I mean, this is, and by the way, that's the title of my book. This is implying that we're, it's right. There is no I, there's only we, but there is actually no we, there's only I, and it's a really big I that encompasses everything and everyone, and completely whole. But we're told that God is unlimited, that we're unlimited. So what is whole? Yeah, I guess whole is continually expanding, but it implies that nothing is missing. There's no lack. There's no limitation. So this is reprogramming. This is beginning to change how I see myself, how I see the world, how I see other people. The idea that I am at one with my brothers, that there's really only one of us, complete, that's why the Course says this is a complete reversal of our current thought system, because the current thought system says there's two of us and there's a little gap between us that keeps us separate. And this is the undoing of the gap, the undoing of the belief in separation, and the undoing that there's more than the undoing of the idea that there's more than one of us. This is big. This is a lot, this is a lot to get my mind around. So I resonate with what you were saying, Johan. Thank you.
Yeah. And I suppose I can sort of rationally figure it out or feel like, okay, that's what's like your explanation, that's what's meant. But to get my feeling to that spot is much harder. So yeah, but I suppose that's the work. Yeah, Ardith?
I was just going to say it's good news that we're not doing it on our own. The Holy
Exactly.
Spirit comes in and, yeah, you said that, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one of the things that this reminds me of too is something that I recently read. I think it was the Manual for Teachers, where it talks about teachers. Who are the teachers? The teacher, anybody who has ever come to the realization that somebody else's best interests are their own best interests. So, like, there's no difference between somebody else's interests and my own interests. And somebody who's realized that at one point, they have become a teacher of God. And so this sort of reminds me of that. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. But.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right. Okay, Peter, would you read 114?
I just want to mention that Derek and Roxandra have their hands up. So.
Oh, okay. Go
So
ahead, Derek, and then go ahead, Roxandra.
So Johanna, you can't see who's got their hands raised, and so I should be the person to moderate that.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I was just going to say, sorry, I missed a bit of your conversation. What I'm saying might be related to what you guys were saying, or it might be something new. I'm just looking at 114 where it says, I am spirit. And what I noticed just, I guess it was yesterday, or 2 days, Sunday, whatever day Sunday was, I was really, for whatever reason, just beset by anxiety. And I was feeling awful most of the day. I'm not sure why. I just sort of woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And for most of the day, I was relating to myself as Derek, who's feeling bad. And then at some point halfway through the day, I thought of an earlier lesson or a later lesson, the one that says, I am not a body, I am free, I am still as God created me. In this case, I'm relating to it as I am spirit. And I thought, hold on a second, Derek, instead of thinking you're Derek and you're feeling miserable, how about sort of talk to yourself in your head as I am spirit, I'm not a body, I'm not Derek, and I'm observing, Derek feel all these different feelings that he's labeling as bad, but I am not that. And that helped a little bit. I don't know if that's a helpful practice in the direction of truly embodying that realization.
I suppose it is. Yeah. Isn't that what Roxandra was explaining last week?
I think this is where I got the idea from, is when she said that.
Yeah.
So I was glad to
you
at least
were putting
it.
Yeah, you were putting it into practice right away.
Yeah. So little by little.
Little by little, yeah.
Roxandra?
I would like to Peter, because he was speaking about the gap now that create the separation. Because when I think I am one with my creator, when I think about God, it is somewhere outside of me, and in adoration I am there. But mentally, intellectually, I know that is perfect intimacy between God and me, and I am an expression of God, what I really am. And love creates life, and it's God itself, it's God activity. How can I experiential close that gap? How can I use my daily life, this intimacy with God? So I am God, I am God's son. His nature is my nature. It's not gap between us. I wanted to ask Peter what he wrote in his book about it.
I wrote in my book that I'm a work in progress on that. I mean, this is the challenge. You know, this is the challenge. Jesus entices us. He gives us the opportunity to consider beyond the gap, you know, to see things. That's why he talks about the difference between vision and sight. You know, spiritual vision, there is no gap. We see only the light of oneness. We see only the connection. So, and I think it's more of an experience than anything else. all I can say is now I try at times, not always, to, when I interact with other people, to remember that there is no gap, to remember the truth, and to try to apply that and have that, I have a teacher that I study the course with, and he talks about one time in his life, he had what he calls a shared experience, which was in a given moment, there was no separation between him and another person, and they were both experiencing the exact same thing from the exact same place at the exact same time. And there was no awareness of separation. There's also an example in, you guys may be familiar, there's a newsletter that goes around, and I'm not sure, it's not the foundation, I don't think it's a foundation's newsletter, and it came out a few years ago, but it was a story of a gentleman who at a course meeting, Course in Miracles group, he had an experience where he lost all sense of separation from the other people in the group. And he was experiencing the moment with all of them. And it was a sensation of overwhelming love. This is something else I'm thinking a lot about. We talked weeks ago about what is love. Love is not a feeling. According to the Course, love is joining. Love is unity. Love is oneness. And it's an awareness, a consciousness of that. And we can experience joy, which is a feeling. We can experience other things. But anyway, this guy in his description in the newsletter, he described exactly that. It was a sense of joining, of oneness, and an overwhelming feeling of joy in the recognition that there was no separation. I'm not there yet. So I'll update you guys when I get there. Thank you.
Keep you to it.
Can I just stick something in there? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead, Artie.
I had remembered something just came to me right now, and I don't know why, so I just pulled it up anyway, on chapter 1 in the text, and this is what came up, so we can apply it or not. It says, Jesus is speaking here, and he says, there is nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. The difference between us now is that I have nothing else. This leaves me in a state which is only potential in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. For if I think to my brothers, this gap, for me, it's easier to not feel it. A lot of moments happen to me, but when I think about God, so it is like it is something outside of me. It's something distant that I feel devotional. I don't feel the included love one with my Creator. I perceive it to be outside, because with my brother, for me, it's easier. I had experience that, I don't know, I was in the metro and I look at everybody, and everybody they were beautiful, and it seemed that I knew each one of them. I said, I can't know all these people, and so exciting and full of joy being there. But God is something so huge for me. So I wanted to know what is your relationship with God, how you cope with that.
Johanna?
I think it's, maybe I'm simplistic, but that's God showing itself to you, or himself to you, through all those people.
Yeah.
There is no other God than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Artist is saying, yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just automatic. Yes, yes. I say yes with exclamation points.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not a construct that I build. It's here.
No, yeah, it's here, exactly. And because we're still looking with our eyes, right, with our eyeballs, and so he meets us where we are, and so we see all these beautiful people.
Didn't Helen Schuckman have some
Yes,
like
yes.
that in the subway? Yeah, that's a to me.
Have you read that, Ruxandra? Have you read her biography?
No.
Oh, Helen Schuckman, the scribe of the Course. she at one point had an experience in the subway where she was really depressed and she was in a foul mood. And her husband didn't dare talk to her. I mean, she was that bad. And she was just seeing all these ugly people and snot and vomit and everything. I mean, it was just awful. And then all of a sudden that changed. All of a sudden, she doesn't say what made it change. I don't even think she knew, but all of a sudden it changed. And she saw only beautiful people. And she was so taken by that experience. And it lasted for a couple minutes, perhaps. And then everything went back to normal, but she was changed forever. And that's in her biography, which is called Absence from Felicity by Kenneth Wapnick. Is really worth reading for any serious Course in Miracles student. It's actually a must read, I think. Absence from Felicity. It's a quote from a Shakespeare play. Absence from Felicity.
It's also in the biography on the foundation website for Helen. You could read the experience in there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Derek
has put the chat. Derek has put the title in the chat.
The title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to add that this feeling of love and connection and joining, as we look through our body eyes at other people, is I'm sort of relating to it as this reflection of God's love here through our five senses, plus our experience of joy and love. And, you know, I've read about people having these transcendent experiences where the whole world disappears, you know, and there's light and there's big as the universe and all these things that you can't even put words to. So I'm sort of thinking, yeah, that revelation experience can happen to people at some point as well. But I think that, at least for me, I've had what Roxandra described happen to me once at a Starbucks in 2007 for about a half hour. And I remember it here 15 years later because it was so uniquely different from the way I normally see the world. And I just was in love with everybody. And I was wandering around to strangers, saying hi, sitting down at their table and talking to them. And it just went from one table to another table and tremendous feelings of connection and love. Came out of nowhere, and then it faded away and hasn't come back. But I think it's what we're talking about.
It hasn't faded away at all, Derek. I feel it continually when you're here.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you.
Me too.
Yeah. We can see it, Derek. We can see it. You can't, but we can.
I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna trust your reports.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I can't visually see you, but I see you, Derek, and everything Johanna said. There it goes. Yeah.
Thanks, Ardith.
So maybe it's just a matter of you know, that one experience is like you put the knife into the peanut butter jar and you had a whole blob of peanut butter in that one day, and now you've just spread it out on your
I like that.
piece of bread.
I like that.
Thank you for doing peanut butter. That's a great one. I love peanut butter. So.
Yeah, me too. All right. Anybody, anything else on 114?
I don't see any hands up.
All right. Are there any volunteers to read lesson 115, or shall I point to somebody? Do you see a hand, Derek?
Yeah, I see a hand. It's pretty close to my face. I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Pick me.
Yeah, Derek.
Lesson 115. Salvation is my only function here. My function here is to forgive the world for all the errors that I have made. For thus am I released from them with all the world. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. I am essential to the plan of God for the salvation of the world. For he gave me his plan that I might save the world. I just want to say that that first sentence, my function here is to forgive the world for all the errors that I have made. That just, as I read it just a second ago, really struck me that when I see all these cries for help out there that I've seen my whole life, and I've mostly never labeled them as cries for help. I've labeled them as, I've judged the heck out of people for all sorts of big and small things. And they mostly have not occurred as, oh, I am making a mistake and I'm the one creating this judgment that this person was mean to his daughter and he's a jerk. I was just like, that's the reality. But as I read this now, I'm like, hold on, that's an arbitrary creation of my ego mind, calling that a bad thing, and he shouldn't. And that's an error that I am making in my observing a cry for help.
And whose cry for help is it?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what your question was, but I was going to say that the person being mean out there is crying for help in their lashing out. But then in a sense, I'm also crying for help because I'm judging, I'm doing a negative act just like they are. It's just mine's a mental judgment and theirs is a lashing out, but it's all the same stuff. It's all error.
Oh, error, yeah. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's crying for help.
Could you stop sharing, please?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alexandra?
So it's crying for help, or it's call for love, because it's so different. Because when I look to my brother and I think that he's crying for help, I see in him lack.
Lack. Mm.
I look to my brother and I see light. Light is not lack, is not crying for help. It is a call for love. For me, it's very different.
Oh.
When I see the poor him, he needs help. I see him pick a little.
Victim.
I see him in luck. But when
Yep.
I look at him, and even the situation in my judgment, in my error judgment, is that he needed, I remember that it is the error that I perceive the situation as lack, but he is light like me.
Mm. Mm. Thanks for that distinction. I didn't even notice I was saying that until you mentioned it.
Yeah,
So
so,
thank
yeah, because that call for help now was call for love in the course expression.
You're
no
right.
Call for help.
You're right. Wow. I just make mistake after mistake. God
But
bless
they're
me.
not mistakes. They're not mistakes, Derek. They're not mistakes.
If he wants to say it's a mistake, let him say it's a mistake. I'm kidding. Just a joke. Bad joke, bad joke. Sorry about that.
There's a peanut gallery down there. She always here got something to say. Well, yeah, anyway. Oh,
Never forget to laugh.
yep.
Never forget to laugh.
True. It's
That's
true.
You know how I do in that situation when I think that I was wrong. I tell to myself that I'm not wrong because this is what my mind is in this moment, so I can't be different. I express what I am in this moment, what my conscious in this moment, so I can't say better or worse. I say what I am exactly in that moment. So this makes me feel a little less guilty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get yourself off the hook. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Ardith, would you read 116?
Sure. 116. God's will for me is perfect happiness. God's will is perfect happiness for me. And I can suffer, but from the belief there is another will apart from his. I share God's will for happiness for me. I share my Father's will for me, his Son. What he has given me is all I want. What he has given me is all there is.
Anyone, any thoughts about that?
I'm just glad God's will for me is perfect happiness.
Yes. But do you believe it?
Yes, I do.
Hmm.
I don't always experience it. That's my growth.
And so
But
what
I
do you
do believe it.
experience? What do you experience when you
Well,
don't
I don't-
experience?
It's in a different. It's in an individual moments. I mean, it's not a blanket kind of thing. I don't degree it. In other words, I can't describe it. Like, for instance, I could make an example, but it might be different the next day on something else. But happiness is it's pretty broad. But I think most of us have some sort of an idea, at least, even if we don't have it 24/7. The difference between what happiness is and misery. You know, would you rather be right than happy? Well,
Mhm.
there's one example. I mean, if in being happy you happen to be right at that moment, that's good. They come together. But on those other times, it's probably usually some effect of us not being or wanting to be right, and that agitates the little non-existent but ever persistent ego, and kind of puts a fog over the happiness that we could ordinarily have if we just received it. You know, I'm not being clear, but you asked, so that's what came out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Guys, let me just jump in real quick for a second here. I just chatted that article. It's called A Holy Instant by John Hutkin, Hutkin. So later on, if you have a chance, just Google that. And it just gives a beautiful example of that when the gap falls away. He's a course student, I think, in St. Louis. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, because I suppose when the gap falls away, that's when you become happy continually, right? So it relates to this very much so.
We've got Robert with his hand up and then Andrew. So Robert, if you want to unmute yourself, fire away.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank you for allowing me here. And secondly, I really appreciate what's been said so far. I just wanted to point out that God's will for me is perfect happiness. That was a real powerful lesson for me 40 years ago when I first did the course, because it brought me out of the idea that somehow or other, either in this world or on the other side, that there would be some accounting to do. And that part of it would involve suffering of some kind. You know, maybe some punishment from God or the universe, whatever term a person might want to use. So the idea that God's will for me is perfect happiness really came across as a powerful idea, especially when I started comparing it with all the other ideas in A Course in Miracles, because it's such a consistent thought system that nowadays, whenever I'm experiencing some form of unhappiness, there's many different ideas of the Course that I use, but one of them that's so overall is this idea that God's will is always important. Whenever you're talking about religion or any kind of spirituality, there's always the issue of God's will. So I come up with this idea to myself: God's will for me is perfect happiness. God's will is done. Therefore, I am perfectly happy. So then it's like, wait a minute, I'm not feeling happy. How come I'm not happy? And then you know all the rest of the story when you start thinking all the other ideas. Well, it's because you're identifying with your ego and not with your true self, and so on and so forth. And then you can go ahead and use the Course and start seeing this differently and asking for a different way of looking at it, so that God's will can be done. That is, right here and now, you can have the peace of God or experience the happiness that He wills for you, and then have it really be true that I share God's will for happiness for me. So that's it.
Oh, Thank you, Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, lovely share. Thank you. Very
Oh,
clearly
by the way, I
explained.
did want to mention real quickly, if I could, Johanna, I read Absence from Felicity when it came out in 1991. And right now I'm actually reading it for the second time. So it's interesting that
Yeah,
you brought it up. And of course, that subway experience I'm very much familiar with too.
yeah,
So thanks for sharing that. You know, I believe I agree with you about a book we all should read, really, you know, to give the background.
exactly. Yeah.
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 You know.
And appreciation too.
Yes, appreciation of what you
Yeah.
went through. Yeah.
And gratitude. Wow.
Yes, and gratitude for the two
Yeah.
of them. Yes, indeed. Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just have a short comment to make. The happiness to me is always a choice, no matter what kind of situation you're in where you might be inclined to be upset or sad. There's a way to choose happiness, and that's always just to find your inner peace. The definition of happiness, I think, can be confusing. It's not always laughing and like you're at a party. Being at peace is being happy. I think in the context of the course, being at peace is being happy. And when things aren't going right, there's a way to choose happiness, and it might take a little work, but it works for me a lot of times. Just think, you know, God's will for me is happiness. I choose happiness, and find your inner peace. I hope that is helpful.
Yes, thank you for sharing. That's very helpful. To know that you're in the driver's seat, right? You're not victim to some mood that comes over you and that you have to ride out, but that you can just remember those promises. Very helpful.
We still got
Anybody
Peter
else
up.
on?
We still got Peter
Okay.
with his hand up, and then me.
All right.
Yeah, God's will for me is perfect happiness. For some reason, my mind goes to the lesson, heaven is a decision I must make. And then there's a line somewhere in the course, I don't know if it's in that lesson or not, heaven is voluntarily chosen. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that means, you know, that means I have to choose it. I have to decide. Happiness is not just something that happens. Actually, in my book, I do say happiness is a choice. It's a decision. It's not a feeling. And it's also a choice that I have to make that's arbitrary vis-a-vis the outside world. If I'm waiting for the world to make me happy, I won't put the expletive in there, but it starts with an F. I cannot wait for the world to change so I can be happy. I cannot wait. You know, you know, in my mind, people who are truly happy are probably happy despite the events and circumstances of their lives rather than because of them. So that's why heaven is voluntarily chosen. It's a decision I must make. I don't always do it. In fact, but I'm more aware that at least now I recognize I have a choice. And taking responsibility for my life, you know, the responsibility for sight, you know, that implies that I'm consciously choosing, I'm consciously making decisions and willing to live with the consequences of those choices and decisions instead of blaming the world for that. Definitely a work in progress on that. Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, jumping off of both what Andrew and Peter said about happiness being a choice, and what I've noticed for myself is that if I told you about the mood I had on Sunday, that if, you know, if a mood has come over me of depression or anxiety, or if somebody says something or an email comes in that triggers me, usually my triggered response is anger and judgment. I've noticed that the thing we're talking about is that there's a choice to be made. If I can catch what's going on I can do what you guys are talking about. But the additional point that I wanted to share for myself is that I've been training in trauma resolution for a couple of years now. And when there's unprocessed trauma that needs to be processed for myself, prior to learning about it, I would notice that sometimes I would use course principles, because I've been studying the course on and off for 20 years. I would, sort of quote unquote spiritual bypass, or go into my head and say, God's will for me is perfect happiness, and not look at feelings or emotions that were just ready to, explode. And I would just avoid them by staying in my head with these statements. And so I'm starting to learn for myself that there's a time when I use the power of my choice and discernment to choose to think, to let go of these triggers and all that sort of stuff. But there's other times where I have to take, 5 minutes out or an hour to just embrace the trauma, the pain, the emotions, the judgments, and just let it all out, either to a friend or to a journal. And once I get past that wave, then I start reaffirming the truth. So it goes two different ways for me, is what I've noticed.
Derek, if I may, I totally agree with that and get it. That's what I think the Course calls bringing darkness to the light. Because you can't deny your emotion, but you can experience it, and you could either choose to cling to it and let it grow. You could experience it, acknowledge it, and say, thank you for that, but now I choose to feel peace. So I'm totally in agreement with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that bringing the darkness to the light, or bringing the falsehood to the truth. I didn't think of that phrase attached with it, but now that you said it, I agree. I get it. Thank you. All right, Johanna, that's everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. That's what you're doing. You're bringing the error to the truth by going through it. And if you spiritual bypass it, then you don't. and it can't be taken away from you because you haven't looked at it.
Yes, I didn't realize that for a good the first 15 years of doing this work. I didn't know anything about emotional processing. I hadn't taken any classes. I haven't read any books. I hadn't done the work that I've done recently. So I didn't even know it was a thing. And I thought I just had to keep my the thoughts that I say to myself in my head, I just have to keep them aligned with the Course. And I didn't realize there was a whole emotional component to process.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to make another observation regarding happiness, the choosing happiness, and happiness just coming over you. To me, happiness is sort of like a flag in the wind. And if you focus it right, then the wind comes from the right direction. And so you can tell by being happy that you're focused in the right direction. And so happiness is a choice actually means your focus is a choice. Because if your focus is right, then happiness is the resultant. And, you'll have a flag that what's the word in English for going like that in the wind?
Fluttering, flapping.
Fluttering in the wind, yeah. You have a flag fluttering in the wind, that's happiness. I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
That's great.
Peter?
In yesterday's lesson, forgiveness is the key to happiness. And why is that true? For me, here's the thing. It all starts from my emotions, come from my thoughts and my perceptions. Thoughts, emotions, words and actions, and then the experience, the outcome. So I recognize that for me, how I see myself, who I think I am, how I perceive myself, that thought about myself, that's what gives rise to the emotions that I experience. And I always say the problem is never the situation. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. And when I change how I see myself, I have a different experience. For me, that's what forgiveness is all about. When I no longer see myself as a victim, when I understand the principle of forgiveness as it's expressed in the Course, it shifts my perception of myself. Not only am I not a victim, but I'm actually in control. I'm choosing at some level. It's not a human consciousness level. It's more of a divine ego. I'm choosing to see myself a certain way, and that's what gives rise to those feelings. So if forgiveness is the key to happiness, for me, it's that shift in perception. The Course talks about a shift in perception. It's the same situation, the same people, but I see it differently. And that's why I have a different experience. And that's what, for me, that's why forgiveness is the key to happiness. It shifts my perception of myself and then of the situation. And then now I can choose happiness. Whereas when I see myself as a victim, I can't let go of that grievance, because I'm only going to be setting myself up potentially for more harm from that person. So that's the shift in perception. How I see myself, that opens the way for the choice for forgiveness. Thank you.
Or you could say that forgiveness helps you see yourself differently. But there's a shift, absolutely. Anybody's hand is up, Peter?
Nope.
Derek?
Nope.
No hands.
We might get a little further through the list than normal, perhaps.
Yeah, we are. You're doing good. You're doing good. Peter, would you read the next lesson, please? 216.
Are we on
No,
117?
217.
Yeah,
117. Yeah.
Okay. God being love is also happiness. Let me remember love is happiness and nothing else brings joy. And so I choose to entertain no substitute for love. And then the second part is, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Love is my heritage, and with it joy. These are the gifts my Father gave to me. I would accept all that is mine in truth. So for me, I'll just say really quickly, this is, I think that the challenge is trying to understand any of this with a human ego, because the book, Jesus is talking to us as if we were already in that state of mind, that where we knew the truth, but he has to do it that way, I think, because otherwise it becomes, it's a mutually exclusive thing. It's all or nothing. He says you can't forgive a little and hate a little. There's no middle ground with this. So I think, so God being love is also happiness. He's talking to us as if I know who God is, as if I know what love is, and as if I know what true happiness is. But from an ego human point of view, I don't really understand any of that, because the truth of those things is so much greater. But he's pointing me in a direction. And so I can begin, I think what I've always said about the Course is, I may not understand what it's trying to say, but I understand what it's not saying. And it's calling into question everything that I believe is true. And so if everything that I believe is not true, then I try to be open to the idea that, okay, I really don't know, he says in here, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you come from, you don't know what anything is for. And so beginning to point me in a new direction. Thank you.
Roxandra's hand is up. Looks like she's unmuting here. Roxandra, you're muted.
God being love is also happiness, because love is all included. love is not judging. And for me, happiness is when I'm not judging myself or others. So it's all peaceful and it's all included. So this being love is also happiness. It's because I don't exclude nothing. I don't judge nothing. I accept everything what it is. I have no opinion, no interpretation. I am part of this. It's this thing about God is immanent and transcendent. So God is me, it's my nature, but God is also the dynamic movement of all what it is. And the second one is I seek but what belongs to me in truth. This for me was very important because I seek what is mine. So I seek where? Inside of me, because I go inside. That lesson for me was very important because indicate me the direction. What I'm seeking is not outside, it is inside because it's already mine, was already shared with me. And this truth that is already there helped me to make the shift and to realize that everything what I need, it is inside of me. Everything what I think I need is inside of me because already was given to me. It belongs to me already. Thank you.
Can I say something? Or does somebody else have a hand up?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just was thinking about how talking about love, you can't talk about it. I mean, we're told clearly that there's no theological agreement that will ever be arrived at in the world, and theology rests itself on the bank of words. It's really the experience, and we see it in the very beginning of the Course where we're removing the obstacles to the awareness of love's presence. Love is the very ground and basis because love is. The Bible says God is love. And so for me, it's taking seriously using words, and the Course is filled with words and repetition. Jesus has to bang it into us. But it's to remember that line about how words are symbols of symbols, twice removed from reality. And when I think about that, I realize that no matter how many words I study, it's an experience. And it's different for all the different sparks in the light that we are. But I'm so thankful and grateful that it's one. It's one thing. It's not that complicated. It is to me when I rely only on the words, but I think each one of us has that experience of love. And when we allow ourselves to be open for that experience of love, in the smallest instance to the greatest, it just floods our being, and we gradually get more and more and more to that real world that we want, and finally get prepared to be it ourselves.
Lovely, thank you. So true.
Can I relate that? I would, just as Artis was talking, I was thinking about, I've been working on music for 20 years as well, and I'm not naturally good at it. So it's been a very long haul. And only in the last couple of years have I really started to get in the pocket, is what they call it, when you really get your timing on, or you really get the music coming through you, or you and the band or the other people are all just in that sweet spot. And I'm thinking of how many words I've had to read and how many YouTube videos I've had to watch and how much practice singing and practice on the guitar and banging away, practicing and learning more in words, all of that. And it's taken forever for me to start to really embody the music that has nothing to do with the words, has nothing to do with the physical movements. It's sort of this magical energy that you finally tune into. And I'm just sort of drawing a parallel to us tuning ourselves into the truth of who we are. This experience of love or oneness is, it transcends all the words and all the practice, but it takes the words and the practice to get to that point, I think, is what I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then when the music comes out, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I wasn't devaluing words. I will tell you that for sure. When I made that mention, I just realized that I have to keep in mind. I need that. You're right, Derek. Absolutely. But we couldn't have the melody without the words. But we couldn't have. It wouldn't make any difference if all we got was the words. I guess is what I was trying to get at.
Mm-hmm. Andrew?
Yes, thank you. I think it's really helpful that the way we're studying this, several lessons at a clip, because I go back to 114 where it says, I am spirit. That is our reality. And spirit, it's hard for us to imagine what that really means, what it is to be pure spirit. But I think it's love, it's life. I mean, God is the original spirit, and he extends through love. And then it says in the one we just read that I seek but what belongs to me in truth. What belongs to us in truth is what we have as spirit. It bypasses this whole dream of the world. We're living a dream right now, a dream that we share. We're all experiencing the same dream, but from different individualities. But our spirit is one with God, one with each other. And it just helps me to look at it that way. I think it helps to look at all these consecutively like this and maybe understand it a little bit better. That's it.
Thank you. I'm glad it's helpful.
Johan, I see you have your hand up.
I have my hand up because I see we are at the top of the hour, and maybe it's a good idea to round off by reading a prayer. Would you please share the screen again?
Sure thing.
And scroll to the last page. Closing prayer, yeah. It's from the Manual for Teachers. Jesus addresses the student and invites the student, him or her, to walk with him. So I will read it, and then after I've said Amen, we can slowly come back to the space and say our goodbyes. And if Derek would then press the unrecord button again, thank you. All right, here goes. It's paragraph 8, in the final paragraph in the Manual for Teachers. And now, in all your doings, be you blessed. God turns to you for help to save the world. Teacher of God, his thanks he offers you, and all the world stands silent in the grace you bring from him. You are the son he loves, and it is given you to be the means through which his voice is heard around the world, to close all things of time, to end the sight of all things visible, and to undo all things that change. Through you is ushered in a world unseen, unheard, yet truly there. Holy are you, and in your light, the world reflects your holiness, for you are not alone and friendless. I give thanks for you and join your efforts on behalf of God, knowing they are on my behalf as well, and for all those who walk to God with me. Amen.